Hello, Fremont. Today we are looking at Mark chapter 11, verses 12 through 33. I'd like you to pause the video and read the passage, but actually, I want you to read verse 11 first as context for the setting of our passage for today. Mark chapter 11, verses 11 through 33. In verse 11, Jesus has entered into Jerusalem, and the first place he headed to was the temple, where he looked around. Our passage at verse 12 picks up the next morning as Jesus and his crew are leaving Bethany for Jerusalem. The passage tells us that Jesus was hungry, and so he approached a fig tree in leaf. The tree had only leaves, for it was not the season for figs, and Jesus said, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." Mark makes sure to note that the disciples heard it, so this was not frustrated muttering under his breath. This was a declaration. Now, Jesus was not raised as an urban kid who didn't know anything about growing seasons. He was likely well aware when he approached the tree that there was not going to be ripe fruit. So why did he make such a declaration? Let's see what happens next. Jesus and his crew arrive in Jerusalem, and once again they enter the temple. Mark states that Jesus drove out those who sold and those who bought in the temple, and he overturned the tables of money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons, and he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. The temple had essentially become a farmer's market and a shortcut through town, and Jesus said, "Enough. This is a house of prayer." The chief priests and the scribes heard him and feared him because the crowd was astonished by this teaching. These same men should have been the ones cleaning out this house of prayer long before Jesus showed up to do it. Instead, they were profiting from the sales and then cranky when Jesus returned the temple to its intended purpose for true worship. As the passage continues, Jesus and the crew pass that same fig tree, only now it is withered away to its roots. Peter sure is surprised by this, but Jesus, of course, isn't. Through his declaration to the tree the day before, Jesus has shown his authority as a prophet sent by God. According to commentary author Sinclair Ferguson, Israel was like the fig tree. It was showing outward signs of bearing fruit, but spiritually there actually was no fruit there. God's people were spiritually barren, and the shenanigans in the temple showed this. The fact that Jesus addressed it shows how vitally important spiritual health was to him. The Jewish people ignored it and withered away. At Peter's surprise at the state of the fig tree, Jesus offers up one of his "truly I say to you" statements, which is an indication to listen closely to what Jesus is about to say. While using a visual of moving a mountain into the sea, Jesus is teaching again the need for their faith when praying. Jesus reminds them that faith is the basic foundation of a relationship with God, not some arbitrary condition of prayer. And while we aren't actually going to move mountains into the sea with our faith, when we pray boldly and confidently for God to remove hindrances, it is in the character of God to do so. Jesus also uses this opportunity to command the forgiveness of others. Our prayers are heard by God because of his grace for us, and we must show this same grace to others as a way to show we are aware of what we have received from God. Our passage for today ends with Jesus and the crew entering into the temple again. As Jesus enters, the chief priests and scribes and elders begin to challenge his authority. Jesus responds with a question of his own. Was the baptism of John from heaven or from man? And now it's awkward for the chief priests and scribes and elders. See, if they answer that John's baptism was from man, then they risk an uprising because John the Baptist was regarded as a true prophet. But if they answer from heaven, then they'd be admitting they are refusing to acknowledge Jesus was baptized by John as the Messiah. So instead, they say they don't know. And Jesus responds that they are not able to recognize the source of his authority. Jesus wasn't trying to trap them. He was giving them another opportunity to acknowledge his authority as the Messiah. See you Sunday.